Hello and welcome to Wingin It. So I have some more gameplay here today. It's another group game from the Blue Tip Bash group stage, which is the current ongoing tournament with the European expansion. So we'll get stuck straight in to the starting hand. And yeah, if you've read the title of this video, it shouldn't be too surprising to see the White Stork there. I have not had a huge number of White Stork games at this point. I've tested it out a little bit, I remember, in the beta, and had it a couple of times against the AI, but not really too much experience with it against human players. So I knew this was going to be an interesting game. I think everyone's kind of got their views on the White Stork. Is it kind of comparable to the Killdeer and the Franklin's Skull that we have so much experience using in the base game? Obviously, it's worth more points, maybe fewer cards that you're drawing, but you do get that ability to reset the tray. So yeah, I was certainly quite happy to see it. But you'll kind of see as I'm sort of going back and forth, choosing what other birds to keep. I think at one point or another, I have every single one of these birds selected at some point. So yeah, tricky kind of working out how to fit the rest of this in. You know, I was kind of looking at the gold crest, but really, if you're having White Stork in the grasslands, I don't think you have enough cards to activate that power. Now, the Carolina Red, I think, works really well here for two reasons. So first of all, you're going to get those extra cards. And again, you know, with the White Stork only gaining one every activation, you are going to be a bit low there. But secondly, it has a lot of egg space. And kind of from my limited experience using the White Stork, I feel like you need plenty of egg space because the Stork itself only has 2 egg spaces. And obviously, whenever you lay eggs, you're laying 2 eggs. So you don't want to be missing out on those. And it could well take quite a few activations of the White Stork before you find something that you want to be playing. So just having those extra egg spaces with the Carolina Wren, I think certainly helps out. And of course, looking at that second end of round goal, you know, eggs in cavity nest spaces, certainly a good one there to get. So yeah, I did kind of look at the Hawfinch. I think if there were some seeds in the bird feeder, I would have maybe looked to go for that. But yeah, when you need 2 seeds and you know, obviously you can keep one from the starting hand, but trying to find that second one was always going to be a bit tricky. So I think this gave me a bit of flexibility. You know, obviously I can play the Wren, I can look to use the Cherry, and then I'm only 1 food away from the White Stork. So yeah, maybe I pick up some good birds, maybe I don't, and I can, you know, potentially look at discarding those for a bit of extra food. So I think this is a pretty flexible start. Obviously, some of these birds in the tray are maybe ones I might look to pick up for myself, or even just a denial. I think particularly a bird like the Black Tern is a very, very nice opening wetland bird. So being able to go first and potentially, you know, pick that up and deny that from my opponent is a good option to have. So yeah, certainly a very open start, a very flexible start. But for me, it was always kind of going to depend on, you know, what you can add to this. White Stork on its own is not a great grasslands, but certainly if you can add in some other birds that are going to let you get points, or maybe some other resources alongside that, then it's a very strong power. So yeah, here we go. I do get the Carolina Wren, and not an amazing pull from the deck. I think the Woodpecker's okay. I probably would have preferred that Chickadee that then sadly appeared in place of the Black Tern that I did deny in the end. So it could still work though. You know, obviously the food is there in the bird feeder, so I could look to pick up the food for the Woodpecker, get that down, and suddenly I'm getting 2 food a turn, which is a nice option to have. So yeah, all in all, not too bad, and yeah, certainly gives me some options for going for food and cards the rest of this round. So yeah, you'll see I do go for food there. I decide to get rid of the Black Tern. Now, this is kind of another interesting point with the White Stork. Like I said, when you're only getting 1 card a turn, it can be a bit slow. But there's also the limitation that you have to reset the tray. So if there is something in the tray that you want, you're restricted to only gaining that when you take the gain cards action. So I feel like with the White Stork, you have 2 options you can go with. You either, you know, just solely rely on that White Stork in the grasslands, use that as a way of getting cards, and if something comes up in the tray that you want, well, maybe you grab it, maybe you don't. That's a decision you make at the time. Or you could look to build up something in the wetlands, you know, maybe a 1 or 2 brown power birds that aren't going to cost a whole lot of food to get down. And then you at least have some way of maybe getting some cards if there are some in the tray. But you'll see, obviously, yeah, getting rid of that black tern. At least for now, I'm sort of going all in on this grasslands with the White Stork. I think, like I said before, just with the egg space on the wren, and obviously the White Stork itself, I do have a few turns to just lay eggs, see what I can get through the White Stork. If I don't get anything good, well, I've still got this woodpecker to try and get down at some point. So, yeah, I've got options. I've got a bit of flexibility. That's really kind of how I'm trying to set myself up here. So on my next turn, you see, yep, go for the eggs, and lots of good options here. Certainly, you know, you look at the red knot and the puffin; those are huge point bombs. Obviously, get your bonus card, and then the red knot gets you some extra cards as well. Both ones I wanted to go for, but obviously you kind of look at the food situation for me at the moment, not great. So I did in the end go for the falcon. Again, unfortunately, a bird then appears in the tray that I would have rather got myself. So that fish crow, I think, you know, that's kind of the bird I was talking about earlier when you're looking at, okay, what do I want to add to this White Stork? Maybe something that can get me some resources. And I think obviously if you're already getting cards, being able to get food as well through the fish crow is so useful. And yeah, you know, it uses up some of the eggs, so that would have been really nice for me to get. So it was a bit of a shame that comes up, but you know, that's the risk you take with a White Stork when you reset the tray and then you know, only get to pick one card. There's no guarantee you get anything good. So case in point here again, not great cards to choose from. Obviously that hermit thrush probably not going to be very useful given my opponent has no forest at the moment. So I did grab the Maltese warbler. It was just one of those where, you know, I might be able to make it work. See, one of these new European expansion birds where you can play some extra birds each round, but you have to make sure that you've taken every action in that round. And kind of as I was talking about before, with my real lack of any wetlands, I'm probably not going to be using that a whole lot. So we'll see. You know, I did kind of think about it. I decided here I'd rather get a bit of extra food, certainly with one rodent there, and obviously the cherry to play this woodpecker. I can now, you know, get this woodpecker down. I'm now at 2 food, and then there's another rodent there, so I could potentially look at gaining that. And yeah, you know, I want to start building up this grasslands. If I'm going to be laying a lot of eggs to try and get some cards through this wood stork, then I want to be maximizing on the number of points that I can get from that. And certainly having a bird like the peregrine falcon in there, which also works with the bonus card, is certainly a nice option to have. So on to my next turn, and I do indeed get this woodpecker down now. So unfortunately not the best pull of the bonus card. I think bird counter is okay. You know, probably I might be able to get 1 or 2 that fit with that. I think, you know, when you do go for a bonus card early in the game, obviously it's nice if you can pick up something that already fits with what you've got. So maybe I'm looking for Forester or Viticulturalist that I'm already going to get a few points from, or at least I'm close to getting some points from. But yeah, early in the game when you've only got 3 birds down, that is always unlikely. So all in all, bird counter, yeah, I could probably get a few points from that. So not all terrible. And yeah, unsurprisingly go for food. You know, I think when that rodent is there, it makes sense to grab that, so I can look to get this falcon down. And yeah, just kind of gives me a few extra egg spaces, and then gives me some potential for extra points as well when I'm activating that grassland. So yeah, kind of coming to the end of this first round. I think we are going to tie this first end of round goal because my opponent does get the fish crow down in their grasslands. But yeah, I think I'm pretty happy with my setup. It's pretty flexible, and hopefully I can get some good birds to add to it. There we go. Falcon goes down. If something good was in the tray, I probably would have gone and grabbed that, but my opponent is, yeah, starting to build up something pretty nice in their grasslands. They've now got obviously the fish crow and then an egg source alongside that to effectively feed that fish crow. So that feels pretty nice to get that going for them. So yeah, certainly feels like both of us are in a relatively good position in terms of getting access to cards and food as well. So as always, kind of with these games, it is going to come down to a bit of a race to see who can get the good birds. That barn swallow would have been so nice for me to get. Already got the food for it, works with the bonus cards. I mean, it works with both bonus cards, so that always seems to happen, I feel like, when you have a bird like the falcon. If it is going to have a successful hunt, it's almost always a bird that you would have wanted to play. So a bit frustrating, but there you go. That's Wingspan. So you take it on the chin and move on. So some good options in the tray there as we come on to my turn. Now, in particular, that Baltimore Oriole was looking very good for me. So, I've already got one worm, and with all of those cherries in the bird feeder, I was kind of working out here, can I pick that up and get the 2 cherries down and then play that? I think that's going to help a little bit with the food situation. And obviously it's 9 points on its own. Helps for the next 2 end of round goals potentially as well. So, you see I did kind of think back and forth there. It is, again, like I said, that kind of weakness of the White Stork reliance here is that if I want it, I have to just pick up 1 card. And when you're doing that in round 2 onwards, you're just gaining 1 card on a turn. It does feel very, very slow. So I did kind of weigh it up and think back and forth, but in the end I do go for it. I think it makes sense here. Just is really going to help with the food situation. And just also, having that 3rd bird gives you the option of discarding. So if I do keep drawing birds with the White Stork that I'm not going to look to play, I can at least turn those into something through using that discarding action in the forest. So as mentioned, yep, go for the 2 cherries. Luckily they were there. I would have been very annoyed if my opponent had gone and reset the feeder, but I think just kind of, it's one of those situations where you see what your opponent is setting up. He had such a nice setup in the grasslands that you're always going to get more benefit from the grasslands compared to the forest there. So I felt pretty safe, but you never know. Maybe he wanted 2 food and had the cards to discard. So potentially I got away with 1 there. But yeah, I think it is one of those situations where you can, to an extent, anticipate and expect what your opponent's going to do. So we go on to my next turn again. And I think this is the turn where the Oriole does go down. So again, it is one of those big point birds, like I mentioned, but it's just give me a bit more egg space. So I do now have 9 egg spaces, and if I'm laying 3 eggs a time, that gives me 3 turns to lay eggs. And so I can potentially look at doing that a couple of times this round, and then maybe once next round. That lets me look at another 3 cards, pick up 3 cards. And really, I'm looking at 9 because each time I'm resetting the tray. So I would hope that I'd be able to find something good in that time, either to add to this grasslands or to put in this forest and maybe get some points or some food as well. So unfortunately, Falcon misses. And unfortunately, again, some real bad choices from the tray. So yeah, not great. This is the risk, I think, with something like the White Stork, and certainly if I compare that to what my opponent has in their wetlands, this Dipper and the Diver, both really good options in the wetlands, and I think they are both the same power as the White Stork. So, my opponent, they're picking up 2 cards, they then reset the tray and draw 1, and then reset the tray again and draw 1. So they're just looking at so many more cards and also keeping so many more cards. That they certainly had the card advantage here. And yeah, I mean, I feel like it was true in the base game, and it's even more true now with the expansion. So you need as much card advantage as you can get, because there's just so many more birds in the deck to kind of sift through and find the good ones. So you want to be able to get as much card access as possible. And kind of on that note, that's why I'm looking at the oyster catcher here. So obviously it's worth a few points. It doesn't help with the bonus cards, which is a shame, but it is going to help get a few more extra cards. So it was worth picking up, I felt there. Pretty good option. So here we go. We finally have some interesting options. So kind of 2 tucking birds that obviously help the bonus card. Chaffinch is going to help both of the bonus cards. So I think it's a good option. I think Chaffinch is one of those where it is overlooked a little bit, purely because it's quite hard to maximize from the power. And I think, I've certainly had times where I've not wanted to play a bird if I can't fully maximize out on the power. But I think even just being able to get a few tuck cards from that Chaffinch, on top of it helping with 2 bonus cards and potentially some end of round goals, I think it's pretty good. And, you can already see with this White Stork, I'm picking up some not great birds that I'm probably not going to be wanting to play. And potentially with this oyster catcher as well, you know, if I look to play that either this round or next round, that might give me some birds that I don't want to play. And so at least I think having the option through the chaffinch of being able to you know, tuck those and turn those into points is certainly not a bad option to have. So, you know, I've got the option. I can play it if I want, and if I don't, again, I can discard it for food. So I think it's at least worth having that in my hand, and I can make my mind up on that later. All right, and here we go. Finally in the tray, one of the birds I've been looking for. So, yeah, that again is a shame. It's like with the Oriole, having to just grab one bird when you're taking cards. It is slow, but and even just a 1-point bird as you kind of go into the late round 3, as you get towards the end game, it feels a bit slow and it was a bit frustrating. But I think I had to go for this here because you know, it gives you that option of, well, okay, if I want to grab something from the tray before resetting, you can use the robin to do that. So it kind of saves you those turns not having to go for the wetland activations. But again, like the chaffinch, it works with the bonus cards. I can use a cherry, which I know I'm going to get for free from this Oriole as well. So yeah, certainly very happy to be picking it up. And yeah, see, I'll go for the reroll. Was really hoping for some worms so I could play this oyster catcher. So was very annoyed that not only were there no worms, but that the bird feeder was set up in such a way that I couldn't even feasibly get a reroll that soon on it. So yeah, you see, I'm kind of working out, okay, what do I discard? You know, what's worth playing? I'm kind of looking at this crossbill and thinking, oh, is this still worth playing? Obviously, there is another seed in there, so I was kind of thinking, right, if I get rid of the buzzard, I can get an extra food, and all right, I'm overpaying for this crossbill, but it is still points, and it is still going to help get some extra food. And you know, if it means I only have to go for food once more to get all of these birds down, then I think it could be worthwhile. So yeah, this is one of those situations where, you know, maybe you have not a great bird in your hand, but if it's going to work in the situation, then it can be a good option. So it's certainly one that I was kind of thinking about here, and it was a difficult decision. And I think partly is where it leads to a bit of a misplay here. So what I should have done, if I'm going to play the robin and the chaffinch, I should be playing the chaffinch first, because this is going to cost me a point later where, you know, on the final turn, the goal is to end with no cards because they're all going to get tucked under the chaffinch. So if I have the chaffinch before the robin, I'm going to tuck everything and then not have anything to tuck with the robin. Whereas if they're the other way around, I can tuck with the robin first and then under the chaffinch. So yeah, like I say, especially kind of when you're playing them both back to back like that, it certainly was a bit of a misplay there. But yeah, it happens. I think especially when you kind of have all these options, you maybe overthink or overanalyze a little bit and miss the obvious stuff. So it happens to the best of us at the worst of times, I think. And here we go on to the final turn of this third round. And yeah, it's one of those where if I'm not playing the crossbow now, I'm never going to play it. So I do go for the titmouse. Not quite sure why I went for that. It's one of those where, you know, these double birds are normally pretty good, but when everything I have is eventually going to get tucked through the chaffinch or the robin, then you know, using those double birds, you're kind of giving away a point because that could have potentially been a tuck card. But again, you know, final end of round, birds with no eggs, maybe it comes into play there. It's something. It gives me an option to have that in my hand and see how we go. So yeah, here we go into the final round here. And that Franklin's goal, that would have been nice to get earlier. Obviously, it just supplements the White Stork in getting cards, but I think particularly with the chaffinch, you know, you turn an egg into 2 cards, and then each of those cards becomes a point with the chaffinch power. So that is a very nice combination to have. But yeah, probably a little bit too late. You know, if that comes up in round 3, maybe you make a case for it and you can get the food and get it down. But yeah, when you've kind of only got 5 turns left, you know, right, it's 1 turn to pick it up, 1 turn to get the food, 1 turn to play it, and so you only really have 2 turns to actually make use of it. And yeah, I think not really worth going for it. And yeah, so you do go for eggs again, kind of skipping this chaffinch. Now I do pick up the gull. I think it's just one of those where there wasn't anything else there to really consider going for. So yeah, when you can pick up the gull, you pick up the gull. There's not really much more to say on it than that. But yeah, again, I feel like this has been a consistent theme of this game, was the White Stork just not giving me great options to choose from. So you know, I was looking at this Setti's Warbler and thinking, you know, finally we actually have an end of round goal here where it would work for. It feels like more often than not it doesn't actually work for the end of round goals that you're trying to get it to work for. I do leave it. It is kind of on my mind that maybe my opponent's going to pick that up and look to get that down, and it could come back to bite me. But yeah, it's one of those things. You make your bed and then you lie in it. So the owl, I think I was kind of looking at the rodent in the feeder and thinking, right, if I'm going for food once more, if I can get a rodent and then hopefully a worm or two on the reroll, then I can look to get down the owl on the oyster catcher, and then you know, maybe even this titmouse as well if I get a free cherry through the oriole. And then yeah, just kind of lay eggs, look to tuck everything I'm drawing through the chaffinch, see what I can get obviously on the bonus card from that owl, but really it is all going to be about the eggs. And I think for my opponent it was kind of the same. You'll see they have a very nice grassland engine set up, but really for them egg space was also the problem. You see they kind of only got 2 left, and they got plenty of birds in there that are generating eggs and not much space to lay them in, so it is always a tricky situation. But yeah, here we go, final turn, hopefully going for food. And we do get the worms on the reroll. So you see I was kind of looking at that fish, and again the Franklin's Gold did kind of come to mind as, oh, is it worth it? Have I got enough turns to do that? But in the end I do, yeah, like I say, go for the worms here. Now potentially a mistake in there again, kind of getting rid of the gull. I'm trying to think, right, you know, how much food do I need? How many cards do I need? Obviously, by getting rid of the gull, it does allow me to do the double play in the forest. But then you're thinking, right, I've traded a gull and a titmouse that I'm then playing to get these 2 down. Those would have been 2 points. I could have got 2 tucks with the chaffinch. So if it helps the end of the round, obviously worth it. It does help with some egg space as well. And there we go. There's the viticulturist that I was looking for earlier. Very, very happy to be picking that up. Ultimately, the titmouse didn't help that. I did already have the 4 birds down for that. But yeah, that's a nice stroke of fortune. I think I'd put it that way, to be able to get the viticulturist, you know, late in the game. It's always a gamble going for bonus cards. So I think normally you take probably even just 3 points. You know, if I just got that lower bound, I'd have been happy. So yeah, to get a blind draw and get the viticulturist for 7 is very nice indeed. There we go. Yeah, my opponent, unsurprisingly, they're going for eggs. So they did play, I think it was the coal tit on the previous turn. I think that was mostly just for some egg space for them. Obviously, it does have a lot of space. So yeah, I do indeed decide to go for the oyster catcher. So I think I probably could have gone for eggs twice, but I think I worked it out as being worth more points to be able to play the oyster catcher. Obviously gets me 5 points on its own, which is not far off what I would get from eggs, and then it does give me extra cards as well to tuck through the chaffinch. So yeah, I think it was one of those where you count up the points. It's always easier with the fewer turns you have. So with just 2 turns left, you can kind of say, well, am I just going to lay eggs twice? How many points do I get for that? Am I going to play a bird and then lay eggs? How many points do I get for that? You know, is that going to impact the end of round goals as well? If I need, you know, all these birds down with no eggs, that kind of comes into play as well. So yeah, you see my opponent, they do play the Setti's Warbler. So I was kind of worried that was going to come back to bite me. I think in the end, I have enough to just about end up tying, which is a shame. Obviously, you know, if they hadn't played the Setti's Warbler, I could have won this pretty comfortably. So that was a shame, and certainly a misplay on my part to have left that there for them. But there we go. Final turn, Imperial Eagle, just to really rub it in your face when you've been looking for a strong bird like that to use up your extra cards. But hey, that's how it goes sometimes. So yeah, here we go into the final scores. And I wasn't too sure how this would go. I had a feeling I would have the advantage on the birds. I knew my pet had a lot of low point birds down. Them getting none on the bonus cards and me getting 15 certainly helped. So we were kind of pretty even there, obviously in the end of round goals. They edged me on the eggs, and as always on the tuck cards, it does come down to that. And it's a pretty comfortable win in the end, over 100 points, which I think you're always happy with. Yeah, I was quite happy with that, especially considering that I certainly felt like that White Stork was not doing me a huge amount of favours. Obviously, the kind of two of the stronger birds that I did grab in the Robin and obviously the big point Oriole, they did have to come from the tray, going for cards and just getting that single card at a time. Yeah, it's slow, but you know, certainly potential with the White Stork. And yeah, if I'm able to score over 100 points without even really drawing anything that amazing using the White Stork, then I think I can be quite happy with that. So yeah, hopefully you enjoyed watching that game, and hopefully you've learned from some of the mistakes that I made in that game. I certainly have learned something. So yeah, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you again in the next video.